wellness work and even therapy haven't worked for you yet the way you want. This is something I hear on a daily basis. Susan, I have already tried everything. I'm at my wit's end with this XYZ problem and I still feel stuck. And so what's this XYZ problem? It could be anything like anxiety, any irrational fear, panic attacks, unwanted behaviors or habits that even though you have already tried everything, you still feel like you're addicted or like there's something wrong with you or that you're somehow broken or unfixable or you've gone too far or maybe this is just your genetics or whatever else. It could even be a physical chronic pain that you might have. Insomnia is a classic example, migraine headaches, chronic low back pain, just more examples here, or anything mental, emotional in nature. And even though you have already invested so much time, energy, and even money, and maybe even medication, you just don't feel like anything has ever changed. You just don't feel like you are experiencing a breakthrough or more happiness in your life or more joy or more fulfilled. Because here's the thing, every human being, right, we all want more, quotation mark, but really at the end of the day, we want to live an amazing life. We want to be happy. We want to be fulfilled. We want to live our best life as our best self. And sometimes there are these sneaky little things that will sneak in, causing the sabotage. So what's really going on? And by the way, if this is you, right, if you also have done everything already, please, 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 please don't blame yourself and don't shame yourself, and no, this is not your fault, and it's not due to lack of willpower or working hard enough, or maybe you've watched the wrong videos or you've read the wrong book, so you haven't just found the right podcast yet or the right motivational video, or there's just so many ways we can blame, and we can, you know, how do I say, so many people feel like they're banging their head against the wall with this. And again, please know it's not for a lack of you or a lack of application or a lack of hard work. In fact, this shouldn't be hard, excuse me, exactly. This shouldn't be hard work. This should be meaningful work. This should be effective work. This should be exhilarating work. Because when you apply something that actually works, you want to experience a reward, right? You want to notice a shift. You want to see something new, something different, something better. Isn't that the whole point? And hey, listen, I didn't say it's not work. It does take work. But if we're going to invest ourselves into something, don't you want to see a return on your investment? Well, this is what I stand for. Okay, and this is exactly why so many therapists, psychologists, psychotherapists, and even doctors send their patients to me when they too they've gone so far with their patients, right? Especially with things like therapy, right? But there's only so far we can go with logic. There's only so far we can go with thinking and understanding and willpower. Now, let's get curious, because what is it that happens here that's different, that actually does work? So again, all the coping skills, you've been told to meditate, maybe to medicate, maybe you have been told that you need more breathing techniques, or you need to be more mindful, or you should just do more positive thinking, or you got to be more optimistic, or you should just be over yourself already, or you should just be... Please, it hurts me when I hear these things. Listen, if that would have worked, you would have worked it by now. But what if you have really pushed yourself so hard and you have approached this from every different end, you still haven't gotten the breakthrough? Is that your fault? Is it because you're not working? No. It's the approach that isn't working. Period. End of story. And so I don't want to spend my time here blaming and shaming and, we already know that hasn't worked, okay? So that's a fact. Now, let's turn the page, because I would like to share with you, if you're open to it, what nobody tells you about this issue that you might be having. And I already indicated a little bit of it, but at the core, okay, the real problem is you have been trying to solve this problem with logic, with thinking and with your conscious mind. And that's a great start. That's wonderful. With hard work, right? With paying for courses and classes and coaches and talking about the problem and trying to understand it. Great start. Fantastic. But you're not noticing a change in your life. Not so fantastic. Exactly. So, well, this is where I explain to my clients, look, where the therapist ended is where we begin. Because if all these things haven't worked yet, it means this problem is not conscious, it's not logical, it's not about thinking, it's in your subconscious. It's as plain as simple as that. And what that means is there are, for example, the symptoms a person will experience. For example, childhood trauma or any kind of unhealed trauma. The symptoms of that often is something like overthinking, ruminating about the past, having anxiety about the future, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, second guessing yourself, doubting yourself, fear about all kinds of interesting things, right? Not feeling comfortable in your skin, feeling self-conscious when you actually want to be comfortable, social anxiety, those are performance anxiety. Those are sort of the common symptoms of childhood trauma, unhealed childhood trauma, right? And in my book, where here's the thing, most of the time the medical, especially Western medicine, will try to suppress the symptoms. Here's a pill for that. Here, do some meditation, close your eyes every day for 20 minutes so you can distract yourself and escape for a little while. And yes, that will give you temporary relief. I don't recommend it, quite frankly. I mean, certainly not for something like this, because the truth is, in my opinion, that approach is actually a waste of time. Again, this is just my opinion, because what we need to do, instead of sending you off to meditate into la la land and to like feel the emptiness and stop your thoughts, which again, how disrespectful, as if that were a possibility or a thing, and as if that worked. So how about instead of distracting and escaping and doing things that actually don't make a difference, they only give you temporary relief, the work needs to be done at the subconscious. And that means all those symptoms that you experience, the panic attacks, the knot in your stomach, right? The tension in your throat, that low back pain that won't go away. Well, I get curious about that because all those things are messengers. They all are such an important part of the puzzle. And instead of wishing them away and giving you a pill so that it just, quiets down and numbs you, no. We understand here. Those are messages from your subconscious. And in that symptom, there's a story. In that story is an experience. And in that experience is the root cause of this problem. And now the work begins. And now you actually get into some fascinating information that can lead to transformation. Let me give you a very basic example. I mean, basic, easy for me to say. When I say basic, I mean a common example. And I just want to give you sort of like a little step-by-step journey so you can see what I mean by how this work is different, okay? Let's just say somebody who is normally, naturally pretty confident, pretty outspoken, they're pretty like life of the party type of a person. Imagine a person like that having fear of speaking. They are afraid to speak up in the boardroom. They're afraid to speak up while certain people in the room. They're maybe afraid to go on stages. They're afraid to go on camera, whatever. Even though they're an expert in their field, they are brilliant in what they do, they have all the information, like they literally can regurgitate everything in their sleep, and yet they're not able to do public speaking, right? They just feel very self-conscious. Makes no sense, logically. And this is the same person that will practice in front of a mirror. They will join Toastmasters. They will willingly, pushingly do so many things and practice and repeat the information, right? And yet the fear is still there. So is it for a lack of effort? Is it because they're not pushing themselves hard enough? Is it because there's something wrong with them? Absolutely not. We welcome them here. And now here's what happens. First, we get to the root cause. And wouldn't you know it, most of the time, the root cause happened way before the person was 13 years old. Now, we'll tap into a memory that they have long forgotten. They may not even like remember it consciously. They might not even know that this happened, and yet their subconscious will take us to the root cause. And now imagine the root cause is this person was 5 years old. They were sitting at the dinner table and there were conversation was flowing, and all of a sudden that little child, 5 years old, said something, and the father gets up and smacks the kid. And basically the kid is now like, whoa, what? Just total confusion, total shock, doesn't even know what just happened, because from an adult perspective, the kid said something inappropriate and wrong and how dare you, and right. But the child in that moment was so confused, didn't really understand what it did wrong, nor did anybody explain to the child, hey, this is an inappropriate word, or we don't say this during prayer, or whatever it might be. And instead, the child is now left with these emotions of shock, of fear, of, oh my God, my dad just hurt me. I guess I can't trust, like all kinds of convoluted realizations about this moment. Father is really upset, the family's upset. And that is when the subconscious will swoop in and be like, you see, speaking is dangerous. So from now on, anytime there's something similar around in your surroundings, we're going to do anxiety so that you can be protected, so that you can just stay down and stay shy and stay quiet, so that you don't have to speak, because we don't want that to ever happen again. You see, that's how the subconscious, the child psychology, the child intelligence will make reason and understanding out of something like that, because children typically will self-blame. They will think, I can't be loved. There's something wrong with me. My parents don't even love me. And within split seconds, these programs are now installed. And now the child unconsciously developed a program of public speaking equals danger. And this program is basically part of this child's baggage. And now this child becomes an adult. And this problem very often time grows, because anytime this adult is around a perceived threat, guess what will come up? Very, very, what do you call it? You can definitely count on it. What's the word? You can depend on it. It's almost like guaranteed results. Anytime that person is near a boardroom, near the courtroom, near a big important person, what shows up is this anxiety, this fear of speaking. And this is where the subconscious is always 10 steps ahead of us, because the subconscious, the prime directive is to protect us. And so often people don't know that it is running all these survival programs underneath the surface. And some of these survival programs are absolutely amazing and brilliant. We want to keep them. But many of these programs are no longer useful. And this is where my client then gets to renegotiate with the subconscious and say, oh, cool, that makes perfect sense. No wonder you install this program. No wonder that this leads to fear of speaking. Got it. But today, my goals have changed. Today, public speaking, my life depends on it. My income depends on it. My reputation depends on it. My, whatever else depends on it. And so I now want to have the ability to speak publicly, comfortably, confidently, calmly, excitedly, whatever the adjective is, right? And that, right, when we have this kind of subconscious conversation, and we are able to help the person change from a subconscious level, right, where then the new program becomes more automatic, becomes more in alignment with what the person actually wants to experience today. Now the conscious and the subconscious are finally starting to work together, instead of, again, because remember, before it was like, I want to be amazing at public speaking, I want to deliver this message, I want to raise more money, I want to go after that promotion, but I can't because I have this fear, but I can't because I'm shy, but I can't because whatever, I'm self-conscious. So it used to be these two worked against each other, but now we're bringing them together. And this is the phenomenon that happens in something like a hypnotherapy session, which, please, also, side note, that's not all I do. Hypnotherapy is just such a huge umbrella. We bring in things like metaphysical work, energy psychology, soul syncing. I mean, there's so many things that are, but just in a nutshell, it's all about working with your subconscious. And can you now see the difference here? Can you see why this might be more useful and more powerful, and why this works? Right? So thank you. My background. Well, so textbook, okay, and even, what do you call it, certification wise, schooling wise, educational wise, okay. What started out learning from courses and teachers and classes and some of the best in the world, that was a good start. But actually, the real training, the real knowledge, the real transformational work, I actually learned during sessions, hands-on. I received downloads, information that I know I didn't learn from books. So it started out with master coach in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, as well as hypnosis, as well as timeline therapy. I also work with Marisa Peer. I work, oh gosh, all the I mean, I can't even list all the teachers and trainers I had. Too many to even remember. Oh dear, Mike Mandel. Gosh, I've taken. But remember, that was a good start. But the actual real training, in my opinion, the best training, the most profound training that made me as efficient as I am today, it started with textbooks, but it really transformed while always. When I'm in session with my clients, that's when I do my best learning, because every human being is different. Every human being, this is why I don't like labels, quite frankly, like anxiety, like depression, like, I don't appreciate labels, because a label doesn't give me a lot of information. I prefer to ask the person sitting in front of me, how is this a problem? What are you experiencing? What are you thinking? What are you feeling on a daily basis? Where is the pain? What's wrong about this? How do you consider this a problem? Right? I want to hear, what's their life experience like, right? What do you mean by shy? How is this, right, preventing you from being your best self? What is it that you need, in your opinion? Why hasn't therapy worked? What about therapy did work, right? How did you feel when you were on medication? And so I want to have a real conversation with real people about real life experiences, not labels that and even fear. Yeah, fear is a word and it's a label, but tell me more. Tell me more about that. Because when I can understand you better, then I can help you better. And sometimes these labels are being thrown around and taken for granted, and I'm not a big fan of them. I prefer you tell me. I'm not interested in what your therapist, I'm not interested in what your doctor, I'm not interested, like, fear of needles. Tell me more about that. What is it like for you to go to the doctor? What is it like for you to have fear of death? What do you mean by that? How does that play out in your life? When do you think about it? So, right, and when we can have a deeper conversation, an intelligent conversation, I can learn so much more, because the more I know about you, the more I know where to go to help you. You see? And again, yes, the information is in the subconscious, but hey, we need to find a needle in a haystack, And yes, of course, this is where hypnotherapy is brilliant. But remember, I do so much more. Because believe it or not, all those physical sensations that you experience, whether it's that knot in your stomach, the tension in your chest, the palpitations you might feel, or feeling nervous, or the flushing in your chest, or I just recently got to work with a professional who, she says, she flushes frequently. Of course, it's embarrassing. It's very inconvenient. And she's like, that's the last thing I need. I'm a professional. I need to show up polished and perfect, in her opinion, right? And I need to show up as my best self. And then, this flushing thing is just not the coolest thing. And I'm like, oh, I can see why, right? So anyway, but as always, we want to understand, what would cause this professional who's just really so brilliant and smart and just like super bubbly and like very engaging, warm, competent in her work, what might cause her to be flushing? Like it is just, some of it doesn't make any sense, right? And that's the whole point. That's when therapy no longer knows how to make sense of it. Now let's get into your subconscious so that you can really listen, as if for the first time in your life you can finally have a bit more self-appreciation. Because I know that a lot of these issues cause a lot of shame, and I'm here to tell you that's unwarranted. That's absolutely I promise you it's unwarranted shame. You know, I've worked with so many people who had been holding on to guilt and grief and, again, pain, and you know, they've tried to bury their past, or they have tried to um, you know, work so hard with willpower. You know, I have to stop this habit. You know, I have to. What's wrong with me? I'm such an idiot. I'm such a failure. You know, how come everybody else can do it and I can't? And again, that's just not the right judgment call, because remember, and again, I promise you, when you're given the right tools, right, with the right approach, you will succeed. You just haven't been shown and given what actually works yet. And this is why it feels like you're banging your head against the wall. And so please, please be kind to yourself, and understand yourself a little bit better, because I promise you it is not for a lack of you and strength and resilience and willpower and pushing and force and, you know, trying so hard. You have already done all of that. And remember, change doesn't need to be hard. I mean, dare I say, I have so much, not I, we working together with my clients, we actually have fun. You know, there are moments, yeah, there are moments of tears, there are moments of discomfort, there are moments of suck. I'm not going to lie to you, but it does take that when somebody is actually willing to take responsibility, the ability to respond. Hey, I have this problem. I don't want this problem anymore. Ability to respond and say, I want help. I want to get to the other side of this. Not blaming, shaming the past, but rather saying, okay, I'm done. Time out, no more. Yes, that does take work. It takes investing. It takes, you know, obviously being curious, and it does take most of the time a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of, you know, are you okay with digging around in the garbage for a little bit? Sorry, bad metaphor, because who am I to say it's garbage? There's no such thing as garbage. But, you know, digging around in what may be a bit uncomfortable. Some of it is necessary. But the point of that is to get to the other side. The point of that is to show you that, you know what, this was worth it. Because the point of it is to help you finally let go of this baggage, of this thing that has been holding you back, this invisible wall. You know, how many clients tell me, Susan, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. I feel like I have this invisible thing up. Yeah, I get it. And you have been also told that you should just close your eyes for a while and meditate and go get distracted and escape for a while. And how has that been working for you besides temporary relief? It's just like the analogy, like I know that, oh my God, I'm in this huge messy room. Oh gosh, it needs organization. It needs cleaning. It needs somebody, you know, to help me. But instead I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to go meditate for a little bit. Okay. And expecting that while my eyes are closed, magically the room is going to fix itself and clean itself. Yeah, right. Exactly my point. It doesn't work like that. And this is why I don't want to say I'm not a big fan of meditation. Meditation has its place, but we can't use meditation as a replacement for the work that needs to be done. You see what I mean? You can't use a screwdriver if what you really need is I don't know, I'm not a very hammer. Okay, I came up with a good hammer. What we really need is a hammer, right? It's no, good luck. You know, I mean, clumsily, but why not just use a screwdriver when you need a screwdriver? Especially one with the power tool, you know, the vroom, vroom. So anyhow, so listen, you guys, thanks for spending some time with me. Let me know what questions you have about this. And again, the whole point of this video, the point and the purpose was this really is for people who are at their wits' end, who have tried everything, done everything. They've worked so hard, they've invested so much time, money, energy. They have poured their heart out to many therapists, psychologists, and they are still stuck with this problem and they want to be free. And if that is you, if that's the conclusion you came to, then remember, you did do a lot of work and you've come this far. And as I always say, where typically therapy and all those other things stop is where we start. Because now you're actually going to get into some good stuff. So hope this helped. Any questions, feel free to reach out. And if you want to connect with me personally, as of now, I still offer a free consultation. Feel free, in my link somewhere, there is in my bio, whatever. There's a link for a free consultation. Feel free to connect and I'll see you on the other side. I look forward to meeting you.